Hello everyone, welcome to AstrologyNewsReport.com. Today is February 2nd, 2014.
Presenting an alternate view of world events as seen through the lens of Vedic astrology.
I'm Ron Berger.
And I'm David Anton Savage. Let's take a look at the week that was.
Last Tuesday was the President's State of the Union address. Let's take a look at the chart of that event for some clues about the Obama administration's coming year.
The President took his place at the podium at 9:09 p.m. Washington time, which gives us this chart. Right away, we notice Mars, the planet of action and combat, prominent in the rising sign, and the President was very clear that this is going to be a year of action with or without Congress.
Yes, he did seem to be throwing down the gauntlet, so to speak. And yet, see how Mercury, the ruler of the rising sign, is in the 6th house, signifying struggle and difficulties. That indicates that Republicans are not going to go along willingly. Judging from the astrology chart of the State of the Union speech, I'd say the Obama administration's 6th year will be more of the same contentious political posturing that we have reluctantly become accustomed to.
Well, the Jupiter retrograde, Venus retrograde, Pluto pattern is strongly placed in this chart, in the 10th and 4th houses. And get a load of this. The moon was exactly conjunct the Venus-Pluto side of the opposition at the time of the speech. What do you make of that, Ron?
Yeah, well, that is a really intense planetary pattern. The moon just jacks everything up even more. If you take the modern interpretation of Pluto as being the embodiment of the destruction-rebirth cycle, it appears we are in for some significant changes regarding our values. In other words, the values of the nation.
That same Venus-Moon-Pluto combo is in the 1st house of the USA chart. I interpret this as being the power of Pluto and the moon boosting the planet of values, Venus, but testing the morality of Jupiter. The question always is, which values and whose morality?
I agree with you there. Venus, Moon, Pluto together in the 1st house, that's a strong combination, and then it's opposite or in conflict with Jupiter, morality and truth. Anyway, we'll have to keep a watch on how this develops over the coming months. A really nasty and unusual winter storm crippled the southeastern part of the USA last week. Traffic in and around Atlanta was totally paralyzed. Kids were stuck in their schools. Commuters couldn't get home and had no choice but to bed down inside stores or in their vehicles. 6 southern states declared states of emergency.
Well, the 4th house of a country's chart signifies lands, the people's comfort, living conditions, stability, and here we find Uranus transiting. That's the planet of sudden, unusual events, of disruption, and disasters.
Yeah, and it's made worse this year, now that Uranus is closer to being opposite the USA natal Saturn. Uranus's energy disrupts Saturn, the planet that represents stability, security, and established norms.
So as Uranus moves further into Pisces over the next couple of years, it will become more exactly opposite the USA natal Saturn, meaning we can expect even more of these sorts of events this year, next year, and through 2016. Moving along, Venus is young females and is opposed by Jupiter, the planet of courts and judges. Amanda Knox, the American accused of killing her British roommate Meredith Kercher in an Italian hill town in 2007, had her original guilty verdict for murder upheld at a court in Italy last Thursday. In the first trial, she was found guilty. Then that verdict was overturned and she was freed. Now she's guilty again. That's the capricious Italian judicial system for you.
Jupiter and Venus were both retrograde and opposite each other. Retrograde indicates a return to the past. Retrograde planets are significators of going back over things and reconsidering. In this celebrated murder case, the legal system, Jupiter, has done a rehash for now a 3rd time.
Oh boy. The interference from destructive Pluto, opposite Jupiter, made sure that the last judgment, which freed Amanda Knox, would be destroyed. Yes. Well, here's another sort of manifestation of an odd destructive force from the Venus-Pluto conjunction. Tens of thousands of people watched in horror last Sunday when two white doves that were released as a peace gesture by children standing alongside Pope Francis were attacked by other birds. A seagull and a large black crow swept down and mauled the doves after they were set free from an open window of the Apostolic Palace.
Whoa. It could be a Venus-Pluto manifestation. Or maybe it would be more appropriate to stick it in the Omenology department, which is definitely another whole branch of divination in Vedic astrology known as Nimitta.
Of course, animal rights activists have spoken out against this Vatican practice, putting the doves at risk and so forth. But for me, I can't help but wonder about whether this event has some wider implications for what is coming in 2014. Symbolically, it is one hell of an omen. Since the doves represent peace, then we must assume the other birds represent war?
Well, there's plenty of stuff brewing around the globe these days that would qualify for candidates in that department. Anyway, following up on what we speculated on last week, that Venus conjunct Pluto would contribute to the destruction of Venus significations like pleasure, a Royal Caribbean cruise ship was forced to cut short its journey and return to port after more than 700 passengers and crew members became sick with a gastrointestinal illness linked, likely, to the norovirus.
Meaning the once happy vacationers were puking all over themselves, and one female passenger said she overheard some people threatening the captain with death. So rather than having to finish the cruise while caked in their own vomit and diarrhea, the captain turned the boat around and headed home.
Okay. And so we have a fitting conclusion for this week's Review of the Week. But be sure to click in with us next week.